Hey guys, so first thing, go into your AP classroom quiz that you took if you weren't here. And our first task for today that wasn't mentioned in the first video that you watched is that we need to fix our mistakes on that. So we're going to hop on. Everybody actually was at the level on that, but you were in groups, so make sure you know how to do it on your own. It goes green, yellow, red. Kind of for 5-4, we're a little worried. So we were all green, but we still want to fix the ones we got wrong. So just so you can see the data, I can see. That's why I like you to take these. Sometimes they don't go in my grade book, but it's probably some of the best days we do is like right when we do right now and discuss. You can see I have absolutely no reason to go over the whole formative quiz. Some of you, 3 of you are going to be fixing number 10. Nobody's fixing number 11. This was a huge red flag for me. I'm like, what the heck? You guys had it right. The key in College Board is wrong. So I did it 3 times and I got the same answer all of you guys did. So I was like, am I missing some tiny sign that then changes it and I can do it a different way? I couldn't get a different answer. That's very rare because this stuff goes through a lot of filters. Does that make sense? I mean, this is worldwide data, like problems, but you guys all had it right. So no one's going to be fixing that one as well. 2 of you will be fixing number 13, nobody number 14. We're going to start with 15. There are 6 of you in here who got it wrong, but even if you didn't, we're all going to do these 3 together. If you got like a 20 and your only one wrong was number 12, I think there's a couple of you. Thank you. You're just going to chill for a little bit. Are you all right with that? So you're just going to decide, but I kind of want us all anyway on that blank sheet of paper to go through these 3, even if you got it right. And then those of you who that covers all your mistakes, you're going to move on to phase 2. So I'm going to hop onto this guy so I can see it, and I'll blow it on up here. I love the data they give me. I'm just not a huge fan of testing in here because FRQs are a pain in the butt. You have to type them in, but for multiple choice, it's pretty good. This one is probably the most important one because it's the most typical of what I've seen on tests for this topic. So 10 of you got it, 6 of you didn't. I wanted to particularly focus on this one, number 15, so you guys can see if you got it wrong on your end, right? All right, even if you didn't, I want to give you a little pointer because we focused a ton when we were doing these improper integrals. As indicated, actually, maybe I can just write on here because I just realized that people at home can't see that. Can I write? I can. Okay, perfect. So when we go from 1 to infinity, we go hello improper. But for multiple choice, I wouldn't want to launch into the limit process. I focused on that a lot because for the FRQ you have to, and sometimes if you get stuck, it's nice to divert to it. But I would ignore because no one looks at your work, and it actually cleans up the concept a little bit. If you just say, I'm going to integrate this as I normally would, and you do it fairly slick, and you decide on your technique, what's the technique with this guy? U sub. So we're all going to be doing this one. We're all doing 15, 16, 17, even if you got it right. Just because they actually have some good stuff in them, and maybe you guessed. All right, or maybe you were in a group and you're like, oh, my group. So this is u sub. So I'm going to write u equals negative x squared. I'm now sitting there with e to the u. My du is equal to negative 2 dx. So I'm going, oh, I need a negative 1/2 fraction correction to get the rest of it. I'm really then integrating negative 1/2. Leave the limits off because just don't worry about them at all. E to the u du. What's the antiderivative of e to the u? E to the u as long as you generated the du. So I really have e to the u with a negative 1/2 correction in front of it, and go ahead and run from 1 to infinity. You don't have to do in your head think of a limit, but don't waste the time to write it unless it's a free response question. And one of you asked me, actually Lainey, I think you were wrapping this one up. She said, should I write that as 1 over e to the x squared? And I said, I always do. It helps me sort out when things go to 0. So I put that negative 1/2 in front, and I go 1 over e to the x squared. I never leave negative exponents when I'm computing anything. I just don't like them. All right? And I'm going to go from 1 on up to infinity. Just picture putting infinity in here. What's this guy going to go to? 0. So I'd have 0 minus. So you have to be careful with signs as well. It would have been nice if they had had a negative 1 over 2e as, like if I was on the committee where these things go through and they think of these distractors, I think a negative 1 over 2e would have been a very common wrong answer. But we're going to be subtracting a negative, and then when we put in a 1, we get 1 over 2e to the first. So that's why it was b. So be very careful. All we had to do, though, really is ignore that limit process and go ahead and treat infinity as a number, even though it isn't. All right, the next one. I have never seen one like it. Why isn't it clicking? There we go. Nope, that wasn't it. Only 2 of you got that one wrong. I gotta go find it. It's hard for me with my fingertip. There's 3 of them, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Some of you will finish that in class today too, but I'm going to go back to my questions and click. All right, so that was the first red, well, this was the first red flag, but that wasn't your fault. Number 16, let's go see what that was. I think this is the one that's so easy it's hard. Or it might be the next one. Yep, this one is so easy it's hard. But 10 of you guys, at least in your groups, got it. But there was those of you who didn't. This must have been a full group, and this must have been random people finishing it at the end. Right here, you do need to think of this as a limit process, because we would be taking the limit, right, as b approaches infinity of the integral from 1 over b of f of t dt, blah, 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 right? But this they gave you. So you're really just taking the limit of this. Really. Does that make sense? You're taking, to do this, you get that, but when you go to infinity, you'd be taking a limit. What is the limit of 4 as you go to anything? This is y equals 4. What is it? Yeah, limit of a constant no matter what as you approach anything. Limit of 4 is 4. What is the limit of this expression? It's almost done in your head, so there's not much you can write. If you get it, you can do it in your head. You just have to think, oh, I need to pass off to the limit. What's the limit of this? It'll be something minus 4. How do we do limits as we approach infinity of those? It's all about the highest powers, right? They're tied, because this is really a 2x on the bottom and a 20x on the top, and that doesn't do anything as we go to infinity. So what's its limit? 6. A little tricky, right? Did that make sense? Priestley just had the aha moment, which is why we do these. All right? You're basically, even though I said you don't have to do the limit process, you really need to for an FRQ, and you need to know that that's what process it is, because they'll trick you up on one like this. Where a teacher says, I'm not even going to teach that limit process. None of those kids would get this one right. 10 of you did, but 6 of you, see, does that make sense? So if you're like, why'd you even make us send it to the limit? Because you never know what you're going to be asked. All right, and you should know. All right, the next one that we missed, we have one more, is a good one. Love this question, actually, and I've never seen it before. The ones I've seen before, you guys got right. That's why we practice those a lot, but we try to prepare for the unknowns. And the 3 unknowns, the majority of you got them right. This was the next one. So, super easy to narrow this one. Did you guys have some discussions about this in groups yesterday? So let's talk about this. This guy we spent a whole day on, so you didn't have to do it by hand, just for this reason, because it tends to pop up a lot. Does this guy diverge or converge? And you should know from that whole day that it depends upon the value of P, right? And P equaling 1 is a fence for diverging, okay? So for sure this one diverges here. And for which other one? There's 2, you got to narrow it down for 2 just with this first integral. For what other value of P will this first one diverge? No, 2 will go make it go like, instead of 1/3, it'll go to 1/9, and it'll go faster to the x-axis. We want it to be above it. Above a divergent is divergent. For, yeah, the square root. Okay, so that one you didn't really have to do by hand, but if you did, you should just know that. So we're down to either B or C. Well, I think most of you knew that. Look at the results. And I'm like, okay, that day we spent at least got him to narrow it down to 2. This guy